Hello and welcome to First Issues Weekly, the compilation of the weekly comic review show First Issues Now. Every day you can check out the newest first issues on First Issues Now, or weekly in a batch like this right here. I'm AJ Carey, the comic archivist, and these are the comics released for the week of November 5th, 2025. So you know that roof that I keep having to work on, for the last couple weeks? Well, I fell off of it yesterday, and that was fun. I'm writing and recording these all while under the warm, wonderful embrace of some light painkillers. No, don't worry, I'm not dipping back into the opioids, but boy would that make my life feel... Oh, right. I was so busy dealing with the dozens or so of Age of Revelation books that I totally forgot about DC hitting the endgame for their all-in initiative with DC KO. I mean, I did cover it, but boy did the weight of Marvel just smother anything around it. Anyways, of course it's not surprising that the first character knocked out of the bracket is also the first one to get their own tie-in book. Because of course it'll be Batman. This is DC KO Night Fight number 1. Written by Joshua Williamson, art by Dan Mora, colors by Triana Farrell, with letters by Tom Napolitano. Experience Batman's epic journey during the explosive DC KO event. The Dark Knight is forced to take a different path in the tournament for the Heart of Apocalypse, one that has turned Gotham into a deadly arena, where Batman must battle against the other Batmen of the future. Who are these Batmen? Stay tuned to find out. Get ready for the greatest fight of Batman's life in this over-the-top crossover miniseries. There's a lot to unpack with that solicit alone. So yeah, if you didn't know, Batman is literally the first person knocked out of the tournament. But he's Batman, and it's literally given how he cheated himself into having his own comic book even after he lost in round 1. Prep time. Yes, like a toddler, he actually had super special armor that teleported him home if he lost. Of course, it's not that simple, because he arrives in a Gotham that has an army of Robins running around, and they chase him, calling him the Batman Who Fell, because that's the naming convention for Batman these days. He eventually gets confronted by the current Batman, who is Dick Grayson. Because apparently in whatever time period this is, Bruce killed Jason, Tim, and Damian also. Neat! Now, I want to say this before I get into my own thing about this, but I think that this is a good book that really does focus on Bruce Wayne and his relationship to the world. The problem is that that's every other Batman book that has been out for the last decade. There's a lot of air-quote deep, gritty purple prose in this that everyone loves giving to Bruce in this. I mean, the first page even has a banger with, "The sounds of my bones cracking is drowned out by the sirens. Gotham's lullaby." And Josh Williamson is one of the names that I can really say does spin a good Batman yarn. But here's my issue with this issue. This is an old hat story at this point. Stories where Bruce is at odds with one of his sons or all of his sons or the world, discovering the family dynamic or just doing a fundamental study of his relationship with the world has become played out hardcore. Again, this is written amazingly well because it is Williamson, and the art is spectacular because it's Dan Mora. It feels superfluous in its placement in the DC universe right now. The story itself, while framed very well, is kind of been there, done that. Then again, the draw could be that really great framing device where you have Dick as Batman because we all loved that. Fucking DC, we actually really liked Dick Grayson as Batman. It was a great... There is also a bit of an intrigue for the timeline since Bruce used the Lazarus Pit, went crazy, and then killed every other Robin. That's also where I think the framing device for this is kind of weird because, like the Solicit said, here's him in a over-the-top fight with other Batmen when it's a Batman and several Robins, and it's not really that over the top. It's trying to do the 2010s grounded Batman thing. And I think that's where I'm split on this, because if I hadn't been doing this show for over a decade, or if I haven't been following Batman for like 30 years, this could very well be a hell of a book. I do truly mean it. It really is a good character study of Batman and the universe around him. But for me, it's just another good-looking version of Batman and his family needing therapy, the comic. So my verdict for this is actually not that difficult to understand, because it is, read it. Read it means that it is absolutely worth reading for you to decide on your own. It's not exactly ignorable in that it's still very well written, and it's linked to DCKO event, but it really is dependent on the reader on whether it's going to be a buy it, collect it, Or maybe you'll read it and think I wasn't even being harsh enough because it's so much of a backpedal of ideas that DC has been pushing, especially with their new Batman direction with Matt Fraction. Oh well, you can't win them all. I am still personally adding this to my pull list because I am nothing if not a hypocrite, and while I think it is a very old hat concept, I still enjoyed it. I'm sorry I'm human. I'm actually really excited to read this one. I mean it. I legitimately read the last specific Ghost Rider book I read was All New Ghost Riders, where Robbie Reyes debuted with his Bankai mask of a flaming skull for this show. I mean, I've seen him and Danny Ketch and Johnny Blaze in other media, like Midnight Suns, but this looks like it's going to be every Spirit of Vengeance and adjacent characters. I, for one, didn't even know that Helverine was actually Spirit of Vengeance, but I really haven't been following Helverine, so the more you know. Doo-doo-doo. But now let's rev it up with Spirit of Violence, number 1. Written by Sabir Pirzada, art by Paul Davidson, colors by Andrew Dahlhaus, with letters by Travis Lanham. Johnny Blaze, Danny Ketch, Robbie Reyes, Kushala, Phantasma, Helverine, and more. Ghost Riders unite! When a strange group of new villains and their sinister plan in motion, Ghost Riders past, present, and futures must combine forces to save the world. But just who is the Spirit of Violence? And what horrors do they bring from Johnny Blaze's and Danny Ketch's past? Forget everything you thought you knew about Ghost Rider. The most climactic ride in history starts here. Listen, this book starts with a cavalcade of corpsey characters like Ivory Ivan, who's a skeleton riding a freaking undead rhino, Jester Jack, Graceful Grace, or the Mac Daddy of the Afterlife himself, Sweeney Drood, as they face off against nuns with machine guns and a freaking bazooka. Yes, it's bombastic, and I love it. Now, then again, there's also a real story here, which is Danny Ketch's sister, Barbara, is missing from her grave. And that's where we get Kushala, who's the Native American Ghost Rider, who looks really freaking cool, by the way, and Ketch and Johnny Blaze finding out that Ketch's sister is the new host for the Spirit of Violence. And they go off to try and stop her. Meanwhile, in Mexico, Robbie Reyes, Helverine, and Vengeance, which I actually think is a pretty big cut. I swear they left his ass in the 90s where his design belonged. But they all kind of just meet up in Mexico, mostly just so the story can introduce that half of those spirits of vengeances. Yeah. More importantly, though, the Decade, that's the Spirit of Violence's crew, I think, actually have a much bigger mission, which is what they're doing when the first half of the Vengeance team attacks. But they fail, and the possessed Barbara and the Decade get their prize. Johnny Blaze's dead wife. Dun dun dun! Listen, I'm a simple man. I know sometimes I can come off as a bit snooty. I just spent the last month absolutely being a snob towards the Age of Revelation. But this story is a perfect example of how you can do a single 20-ish page issue that has 6 Spirits of Vengeances, each with their own backstory, that was able to easily be conveyed, a slew of new villains, all interesting enough to want to see them on the page, a brand new mega villain with the Spirit of Violence, hardcore action fun, and even small character moments where the plot can just ease along with the characters, and still have a oh my god cliffhanger ending. I mean, no disrespect to Sabir Pirzada, all I'm saying is I don't rightly know him as a singular writer. I know that he's worked for Marvel TV, but this as a debut first issue was better than 90% of established, hardcore, big-name writers when it's come to Marvel Comics output over the last 2 months, and it is insane. Awesome, but insane. As for the art, it's hard to have 6 characters that are essentially just fire and bones, but goddamn does this work so well to distinguish each and every one of them. Even with the Decade, who are basically all just skeletons in different hats, sometimes quite literally, the fact that all of these feel natural and not blending together on the page is a hell of a thing. Either way, I absolutely loved this and had a blast, so my verdict for this book is buy it. Buy it means that it's absolutely worth reading and worth buying. You should add this to your pull list, both physical and digital, but I always go more for physical, and honestly this may be more on the collected side because damn do those cover variants look hot. I'm feeling pumped for more Marvel again, So this is going to be a great feeling going into the next issue. I don't think I've actually covered any of the Alien Versus line of books yet. I did Predator Versus a couple months back, but I'm slightly more interested in how writers would handle aliens, since you can argue that Predators are not that different from other baddies in the Marvel Universe. Granted, Marvel does have the Brood, but that's an X-Men thing. However, now I'm already upset that we won't see a Brood Xenomorph hybrid in this. One day. Still sounds cool, so let's just read Alien vs. Captain America #1. Written by Frank Thierry, art by Stefano Raffaelli, colors by Karaj Menon, with letters by Clayton Cowles. The Red Skull's newest recruits. It's World War II and Hydra seeks a new weapon to defeat the Allies and win the war. To that end, the Red Skull has sent Baron Strucker on an expedition to the Himalayas to find the fabled city of Atalan. But instead of finding the Inhumans, Strucker uncovers something much more deadly. Much more alien. Can Captain America and the Howling Commandos stop the Skull and his newfound xenomorph weapons? Or will the first Avenger learn that in war-torn Europe, no one can hear you scream? That is actually probably the best and most concise solicit I've read for a story in a long time. That's exactly what happens in this first issue. I mean, granted, we do actually have like 3 separate times we see facehuggers have a group lesson in non-consensual play, so there's a hell of a lot. And then at the end, when the Howling Commandos finally meet up with Captain America and Bucky, it's in a town that has the entire populace of said town having been chest-burstered. It's pretty intense, and I think it works amazingly well for this, though. Now, firstly, I believe that the naming convention here is wrong. With that many xenomorphs running around, plus a queen on site, and everything like that, this is a survival action story, and therefore should be called Aliens, with an S, versus Captain America. Not Alien. Alien is when it's 1, maybe 2 monsters, and the name of the game is terror and survival horror. Whereas Aliens is when you go for the swarm shooting survival action. Of course, we all know that that's because corporate went, but the IP is Alien. Okay, but not really the point. I mean, yeah, this is definitely going to be more masses of Xenos about to descend on Cap, Bucky, and the normies, and it is shaping up to be a pretty epic. Yes, we know that Cap isn't going to be face-hugged, but the book has never tried to make you afraid for Cap in that sense. Now, the Howling Commandos, however, yeah, probably going to be at least one makeout with a double mouth. Also, I absolutely want to say I love the art on this. It feels very natural for the Alien franchise, as well as a pretty great feel for World War II era Cap. It's a great thing to be able to make me nostalgic for the Dark Horse comics. Yes, I should end this with saying that I absolutely read the Alien comic books in the 90s before I ever actually saw any of the movies. I know that's a weird take to have, but the franchise was huge when I was born. Right, so my verdict. Now, I may piss off some people who disliked my take on Predator, but my verdict for Alien vs. Captain America is collect it. Collect it means that, yes, it should absolutely be added to your pull list, both digitally and physically, but, of course, we always side with physical here because it helps out shops. And when it comes to collect it, that means you should totally have all of the variant covers. Personally, though, if you only need one cover, that Dan Panosian cover, the foil one especially, is metal as fuck. Okay, so if you remember back right before Age of Revelation started, they were doing the cosmic, how do we get the stink of the Perlmutter pettiness era off of the Inhumans event, Imperial? And there was a random tie-in that was Planet She-Hulk. It was fun, I said everyone should have it, and I've been really excited for this book since then. So I don't want to dally, let's just launch into Planet She-Hulk #1. Written by Stephanie Phillips, art by Aaron Cooter, colors by Sonia Obak, with letters by Joe Caramagna. Sakaar, party of one. She-Hulk is back and she's stuck on Sakaar. Spinning out of Jonathan Hickman's hit cosmic epic Imperial, Jennifer Walters made a promise to her cousin Hulk to watch over the planet Sakaar and its peoples for a few days. But it's been longer than a few days, and now She-Hulk is in charge of keeping the peace on a planet of war. But Jennifer is a very different Hulk than the one that once smashed Sakaar into submission. Is she up for the task? Now, I'm about to be a hyperbolic bitch when I say this, but I could honestly read 50 issues of this series. I am a John Carter fuckboy, so the fish out of water space fantasy will always tickle my fancy. And the fact that Stephanie Phillips just gets the allure of She-Hulk makes it doubly so. The allure, of course, being a humor that isn't necessarily cartoonish, but definitely a bit more exasperated, and nothing makes an Earth attorney more exasperated than needing to manage the politics of a planet where the laws aren't really the same bar as Earth's. Now, of course, the big premise and plot here is that there's going to be someone vying for the throne of Sakaar now that the Hulk's gone. But I think that's only secondary to the fun of meeting characters like Rowan Creed, the bird-faced yet charismatic Jabba of the planet, or Blackjaw, the person whose wedding sort of kicks off this whole affair. And the most prominent She-Hulk recurring guest star, Jennifer's green yet firm ass. Bath scenes are a staple fixture of the She-Hulk experience. Extra points for when they're dripping with character and plot in equal amounts to the bubbles. I think I may be a bit of a pig today. Oh well, not as bad as John Byrne. Also, the art in this is spectacular, and I truly wish Marvel, or any company really, still thought the concept of posters was a good idea, because if they had a clean version of that first page, it would be on so many walls. Okay, maybe dozens of walls, but still, at $5 to retailers and they sell it for $15, that makes up for the printing cost for everybody. Oh, I should also bring up I did a Then and Now of Comics episode on Sensational She-Hulk, so check that out on my YouTube channel or the Then and Now of Comics podcast. No, it's not really related to Planet She-Hulk proper, but it's nice to talk about She-Hulk as a character. Anyways, my verdict on this is collect it. It is a hoot and a half, so add it to your pull list, both digitally and physically. You should absolutely get that Imperial preview issue, and of course the variant covers. Oh, what wonders the variant covers hold. Yeah, you should have a couple that are just some pinups, but then you get something like the Workout She-Hulk, and She-Hulk with a big fucking sword, and as always, any cultured gentleman will tell you, the bigger the sword, the harder the Maybe it's me, but there's something wholesome about a cover that shows a boy hugging his robotic dog as it has blood dripping from its mouth. I can only think this is a positive enforcement that dogs are great guardians for the tribe. But the real question is, does the dog also have a TikTok-worthy dance for when it snaps? So this is Death Dog number 1, written by Bryce Ingram, art by Alan Robinson, colors by Paul Little, with letters by Rob Steen. In a near-future America, Wyatt, an innocent 13-year-old accused of shoplifting, is pursued by murderous robot police dogs. But an accident transforms one of his terrifying pursuers into a tame, docile, and affectionate robo-dog who tries to bond with and protect Wyatt. A touching tale of a terrifying future from the deranged mind of Bryce Ingman and Alan Robinson. In a world where dogs went extinct, humans are nothing if not nostalgic for when they stopped fucking up so much, so there's electric dog pets. However, the Cupid Canine Company that created them has been sold, and we actually begin the tale as we often do, with the final cutesy robot dog being put down. The next year, the shoplifter Wyatt, as talked about in the solicit, is pinned to the ground by a robotic dog, this robotic Doberman on top of him, stating that he must choose which hand to be bitten off. Then there's a random ding, and then the Doberman begins to lick him. I won't spoil the rest, but yes, now Wyatt has a big dumb puppers that will bite off people's arms without a thought other than potato. Last week I went into a hell of a rant about Synthetics, the comic that JMS put out, that felt like it was trying too hard to be every single cyberpunk cliche all rolled into one, that it became this muddled mess of a setting and story. It became the Grey Goo. This is actually kind of the exact opposite, where it's set in 30 years from yesterday, which is a great convention that I always love for more generalized, the future kind of things. Or at least when they can feel like they mean something more than a random date. More importantly, though, even though this is a lot lighter than the neo-noir neon grunge detective story, it does everything better. The world building, especially. When you open a story proper with a robo-dog about to bite off the hand of a shoplifter right outside the store with a crowd of people chanting, "Choose which hand," you get the diegetic storytelling that makes the world click into place much better than if it's just being told. However, before we actually get to the Black Ops Friday, we actually get an explanation that dogs as a species do not exist anymore, and how Robopets are a failed industry. So there's also the unique notion that couldn't have been shown, but the humanity of the engineers as they terminate the last one clicks all that together. We know that there's asshole corporations still. We know that man's best friend, dogs, are all gone. Plus, it is also easier to get people into feeling about animals. It's why the Good Boy horror movie that came out worked really well, even though the creator had to come out and immediately say that the dog lives, because we as a species love dogs. We're give or take on humans, but dogs are the good things. And the art, I think, works very well in conveying a simple, straightforward visual that allows for both the fantastic nature of a dino mutt, but also the rundown slums that we don't need to have super futurism to it. I mean, this is, again, only 30 years from yesterday. We've sadly come to terms with the fact that it doesn't take 30 years. We've sadly come to terms with the fact that we won't have full chromed out future in 30 years. Also, I know this isn't actually a Trauma IP, and I do blame Toxie for this, but boy howdy would I love to see this film as a Trauma movie. And so my verdict for this book is a wholehearted collect it. Collect it means that you should go full tilt with this. Add it to your pull list digitally and or physically, mostly physically because you should also get the variant cover. I mean, I think there's only one, but it is a great one to track down. It is a really damn good book, you guys. I wish I had a good cold open for this, but I mean, it looks to be a bright and vibrant space romp written by Matt Kindt, so I just want to read the damn thing and have a treat for myself. I knows what I likes, but hey, let's find out if I'm right with Space Scouts #1, written by Matt Kindt with art, colors, and letters by David Rubin. A young girl heads to the center of the universe to compete in a reality show to become the next Space Scout. What starts as a teen drama turns into deadly war at the end of the universe, as the winning recruits are sent into a clandestine, indeterminate battle that they most likely won't survive. Space Scout is the latest release from Flux House Books, a new boutique imprint that will feature the writings and sometimes art of acclaimed comics creator Matt Kindt, with crime, science fiction, horror, and humor stories, all told and presented in startling and untraditional ways. Yes, I kept in the pluggy part of the solicit because we support indie creators here, even if it is an imprint for a specific creator or creative team. So please, of course, support Dark Horse Comics and especially Flux House, no matter what my verdict today is. That's counterintuitive, I know. All of that out of the way, I loved this. I know I sort of said I was going to in the beginning, but when it comes to Matt Kindt's writing, if you give him any reluctant coming-of-age hero, this time set around a space scout in kind of a Hunger Games-y Mr. Beast Cube scenario, but then she begins to excel and become a fixture of the games before they ramp it up to an 11, it's gonna happen. No, it's not just the interior dialogue, but the showcase of the character, as well as the sheer interesting way that the supporting characters play off of the main character. And of course, Matt always creates very unique worlds that can feel ludicrous to some level, but also very grounded. It's a very human story for what are technically alien creatures. And the art, oh man, the art, I love it. I'm not sure I want to use the word whimsical, but it's the one word that feels kind of right on my tongue right now to describe the backgrounds and world we see, while the characters all feel expressive and unique. Plus again, I love that we have a vibrant indie feeling book rather than yet another sterile kind of dark sci-fi book. It makes it that much more awesome and unique to read. My verdict for this book is quite easily buy it. Buy it means that you should absolutely have this comic on your pull list, both digitally and or physically, as well as definitely have a physical copy for both of it and the variant cover. There's only one that I can see, so I don't know. There's only one that I know of, so I think that'll be the best foot forward, and definitely keep up on it. It is a great read and a fantastic thing. Now I need to go and see what else has come out or will be coming out from Flux House. I was very underwhelmed last week with the Chitara one-shot, so I should at least reiterate that I have seen the OG Thundercats cartoon, but have not really engaged with Dynamite Entertainment's version of the characters, or even the revamped cartoons that came out 10 to 20 years, I don't even know anymore. None of that actually matters though, because this is the Dynamite doing their own thing, and more importantly, if it's a one-shot, it should be good enough of a story to stand on its own. With all of that buffering out of the way, let's whip it up in Thundercats, Premiere #1, written by Ed Brisson, art by Alice Leclerc, colors by Arancia Studio, with letters by Jeff Eckelberry. One cat against the world. In the aftermath of a war against the mutants, a war that claimed her parents' life, an orphan Palmyra is taken in by Jaga, who sees untapped potential in the scrappy young cat. As she grows, Palmyra, still angry at the universe over the loss of her parents, trains under Jaga in the art of healing and discovers the power of compassion to transform pain into hope. Fucking A, this is how you make a character-specific origin one-shot. I know, it's Ed Brisson, but I can admit sometimes he misses the mark. But by God, I actually dislike the Chitara one even more, having seen how it could have gone here. So the plot itself is that we start seeing Palmyra's, and I don't know if it's pronounced Palmyra, whatever, but we see her homestead attacked and her parents killed when she was a very young child. However, Palmyra gets saved only because other people needed killing, and her defense, and she actually blinded one of the attacking gorilla mutants. She then gets taken to a training area that every child in these sorts of things do, and is mostly trained by Panthra more than Jaga, but years later, the only thing that she has left to remember her parents is her rage. But she is still quite trained at the time, so Jaga is the one who turns around and goes, "Oh, we have word of a gorilla with a damaged left eye living up in the mountains. Hehehe." Naturally, that's going to lead to Palmyra taking an axe and going off to take her revenge. Now, I'm not going to spoil it because this is actually the thesis of the book, and frankly, this scene where she goes up the mountain, it's a great scene, both when she gets to the gorilla cave and then when she's crying into her best friend's arms afterwards. It is truly brilliant. But seriously, it is a plot that explains who Palmyra is, why she is the way she is, and even has some great points to be made using the character. This is what a one-shot's supposed to be. This is how you write a strong, competent character with flaws, but not overly dumb flaws. There's even a small moment that could have easily fallen into tropey writing when Palmyra is still young, complains about why they're using wooden swords to train, and it comes off as a learning moment rather than just bullshit angst. Oh, and the art in this is great. I don't really have anything to say about it because, well, it's exactly what you'd want from a Thundercats book. The action is dynamic, the character designs are fantastic, and it's just great to look at. So, clearly my verdict for this is collect it. Collect it means that while this is a one-shot, you absolutely should have this book in physical, and if you plan on reading it, digital too. There are a ton of variants, and they are all really, really awesome, and you should get them too. Now, the collected part, compared to the buy it, would be that since this is a one-shot based off of the Thundercats Dynamite run, you should absolutely be checking that series out too. All of these are character-specific one-shots meant to flesh out that world. So, go out and check that out too. Hi, I'm AJ Carey. This may be my channel, but this is not my show. This is Sammy's Picks. Basically, once a week, my co-host on Killing 15 Minutes, Mything 15 Minutes, and Blanking 15 Minutes, oh, and she's also my sister, picks a new release from our first issues pool that she wants to talk about as a barely literate casual comic reader. So, time for the Casual Comicist. This shall be fun.
They did the mesh. They did the monster mesh. They did the mesh. It was a graveyard smash. Okay. I'm Sam Rossi, the Casual Comicist. And this is Sammy's Picks, my first issue review show. I should not sing Monster Mash when picking IDW's Monster High, Shock and Awe from this week's list of first issues. I had to do it. I believe in year-round Halloween. Let's gush over the artisans on this book. Writer Heather Neffer. Artist Kaylee Riley. You know how I love a good letterer. On this book, letterer and designer is Johanna Natili. Thank you for being an artist. We at Carry On Productions appreciate you. Let's start with the solicit. Let's start with the solicit. And Shock and Awe, Invisibility, Billy. That one's a good one. Wishes he could read Scara Screams Mine. He gets a bit more than he asked for when a shock from Frankenstein causes them to switch bodies. Billy and Scara will have to work together and learn how to control each other's powers if they want to switch back for the Frady Hawkins dance. Alright, it's a basic high school plot with a flair. Everybody knows this story, basically, about the dude, where the chick is trying to figure out if the dude's gonna like her and if he's gonna say yes to go to the dance with them. That is how Sadie Hawkins works. The switching bodies always happens when the couples aren't honest with themselves. Honestly, it happens a lot in comic books and movies and cartoons. Maybe some TV shows. You need to walk a mile in each other's shoes, basically. All that jazz. It was interesting. Especially how do you write a nice guy that turns into a ghoul and can read minds. It's a good book, especially for young teens. The lettering was crisp and perfect, an easy read, and I loved that after reading last week's comics. I dug the 7-minute read. It was that quick, that easy, and it was a nice break from reality. You know I want you to read it. It's a nice escape, and you need that. I promise. Self-care is necessary. And if you don't agree or want to say hello, you can get me on Twitter at CarryOnProd and on Facebook at CarryOn Productions. I'm Sam Rossi, the Casual Comicist. Creepy dreams, Inklings.
With all of that, though, maybe I'm wrong or I missed a comic worth talking about. Let me know on YouTube video version of this, or on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, or on social media at The Comic Archivist on Facebook, on Twitter at First Issues Now, and even on Blue Sky at AJC Does It All. I'm always open to being told how wrong I am about the current mainstream and or indie books alike. Don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, and do all the other stuff that I'm being told I need to say to keep this show going again. Don't forget to check out the other Carry On production podcasts like Killing 15 Minutes, Mything 15 Minutes, and Blinking 15 Minutes. They're great, I promise. More than anything, though, remember, stay golden, Inklings.